Hello everybody, welcome back to another YouTube video. I'm Sean's Mapping or the Sultanate Empire, and in today's video we are going to be continuing What If Civilization Started Over. Let's get right on into it. In the last episode, we did see some major wars take place. For example, the Civil War of Indonesia, the War for Asia, right over here in Asia, slavery beginning up here in the colonies of Scotland and the Welsh, Wales essentially. Well, southern England, I guess. I guess it's just like England at this point. Uh, that's funny. The British are doing slavery again. Lord have mercy. Basically, we saw the Scots and the Welsh find a bunch of native tribes that were not that big, and they realized free labor. And that's exactly how slavery began. You got to remember, the world started down here in Africa and then spread up to Europe and Asia and all of these other places, which means slavery was never really able to start because all of these places were pretty much on the same level of technology with each other, with some countries being more advanced than others. Now, we also did see our very first continent be fully filled in, which that is Australia. If you don't know, Australia is both a continent and an island. It is the only continent that is an island, even though I guess you can consider Europe, Europe and Asia one massive thing, but at that they're still connected to Africa until the Suez Canal was built. Once the Suez Canal was built, then Africa will be separated from the Middle East, Asia, and Europe, making Africa technically an island and Europe technically an island. Technically. Now, let's get on into the primary points of today's video. That is continuing the Civil War of Indonesia. If you did not see the last episode, again, I suggest you go check it out. As we had the Civil War. Sorry, I'm tired. We had the Civil War begin in the last episode because basically the leader of Indonesia, which is my friend Silver's country, basically had 4 kids. The youngest got the primary country, with the others breaking away in this, looking kind of like this. The Australian and Papua New Guinea colonies all went over to the eldest brother. The sec, the third eldest got all of this right here. The second got all of the Philippine Islands, and that's about it. And if you're wondering how did the war for Asia begin, it's plain and simple. The war for Asia, well, South Asia that is, began in the simplest ways with Vietnam and Myanmar declaring war on uh, Indonesia, basically Silver's primary government country. And that basically kicked off the primary war. This is what the war looked like in the last episode as we went on to focus on other things. And now we will be seeing the front lines move and change once again. The first thing we will be seeing is the red team being able to push back blue team forces, and Indian forces alike. But this does in fact come at a cost because they do one major push to try and push the Indian and blue team forces out of the country. They do one big boy push like this. Going like so. Kind of looking like so. They're able to secure most of the country, but the small portion right over here still remains as an uh, square team aligned forces thing. With the red team now encroaching on the border with this country right up here, Their allies are now able to push back this country as essentially they are forced to redirect forces down to the red team front line, and that's exactly what happens. But in about 10 seconds, they are going to actually not invade into this country because they need to send their troops elsewhere while holding a defensive line. And that is due to the fact that this yellow country right up here does in fact declare war on them. And in the last episode, we did see uh, the northern Caspian Kingdom declare war on the Orange team, becoming a third party in this war, and these guys are also a third party in said war, kind of trying to just do a quick land grab, and with their forces distracted on a different front line, that is very easy for them to do. And now we do see them reach right outside the capital, and then their forces, this country's forces, do arrive back from this front line and hold a defensive against those guys right over there. However, that major push to try and push the Indians out did come at a cost because the purple team right down here, Iran, Persia, whatever you want to call it, was able to completely push them out of their country and then do a counter invasion into the red team and push fairly deep and far into the red team, nearly cutting off the red team's forces from, red team territory that are over in the blue country. Because with Indian support, India is technically fighting a three front war with their allies. They are able to push all the way up to here, taking that entire like little peninsula thing that they had, that little point. They are also able to secure all of this area right over here, pushing towards the capital, alongside some minimal support by the green team, and they're eventually able to threaten the outside of the capital. But like I said in the last episode, the capital of the red team right here is essentially like Bossing Say, if you have ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, where it is a three layers of walls. Why was that so hard for me to say? Where it's three layers of walls. Basically, you got the exterior wall, the outer wall, the inner wall, and then the most inner wall, basically the outer wall, the inner wall, and the most inner wall. That's all three layers of the wall, and that is basically that's what's making the capital so hard to take for the red team. Now the orange team and the Northern Caspian Kingdom, have kind of signed a ceasefire with each other because Uh, the North Caspian country was forced to by the Black Sea Caspian Union over there. We do also see India in their efforts to try and save their allies and focus elsewhere. We do see them begin to get pushed back further and get pushed back to the original borders with no counter invasions done. However, we do see them make some minor gains up in the north, as they're able to take back their lost territory and take pretty much all of this northern area, cutting the pink team off from any allied support from their northern country and cutting the northern country off from pink team support, which isn't good because the pink team had multiple troops stationed in this like seafoam green country right here. But like I said, we will be seeing India gain back all of their lost land right over here. But there is some good news uh, for the South Asian Accord, as they are able to push back India from the southern parts of Southeast Asia and capture back the pink team's capital, like so, pushing up into these areas, taking back a pink team city, and reaching the Indian border here in the south. Now, you may be wondering, why isn't Taiwan getting involved? Well, Taiwan chose not to join the war just yet, and they do join now as the South China country, has completely and utterly left their border unguarded and undefended, sending their forces completely to aid and support the pink team. This strategical move done by the Taiwanese, as everyone assumed that the Taiwanese were fairly neutral, as they were actually the most peaceful and neutral country out of the entirety of the Indian Pact, and essentially they were always advocating for peace within the alliance between South Asia and India. They were always advocating for peace. They were the most peacefulest country there was. But in recent years, they did lose their kings at young ages, bringing a line of new, ambitious young kings for about 2 decades. And that peace quickly changed into usefulness, and eventually, by the time the South China forces arrive, we do end up seeing most of the country already taken and the primary island being threatened by Taiwanese naval forces. But thankfully, they get pushed back by Vietnamese and Myanmar by the Vietnamese Navy, which is significantly bigger than Taiwan's, as Vietnam does have a bigger coastline than Taiwan. But unfortunately, Vietnam has to focus all of its troops now over in South China instead of helping Myanmar and the pink team. We will now also be seeing the red team finally get pushed back out of the blue team right over here by Indian and blue team forces alongside some blue team militia rebels that have been aiding the Indians and the blue team forces, eventually reaching right up to here and eventually reaching all the way back to right over here, doing a encirclement thanks to some help from the pink team or the purple team, basically Iran. And it also allows this country right up here to begin their invasion again. But this time, since this country is fighting a two-front war, they do in fact lose a lot more land than they did initially, which isn't too good for them at all. This country, seeing where this war is going, quickly opts out of the war, leaving not only leaving the alliance, but also signing a peace treaty with both the Pact of India, or the Indian Pact, and this country right up here. The red team, realizing they are now all alone in this on this front with zero help, does the same thing, hoping that they too won't lose much land. So they both leave the alliance and also opt out of the war, signing peace with the Indian Pact, or the Pact. Pact of India sounds better. Pact of India, allowing the green team, the orange team, the Iranians, the blue team, and this country to all redirect their focus and troops back over towards Southeast Asia. And it is only once with that front secured, India's troops now begin to pour in towards the pink team, causing some fear and chaos from the South Asian Accord, as this country right up here does begin to invade their northern friend and ally. And it is when their forces reach right about here that the South Asian Accord, realizing that there is just no chance of winning, sues for peace with the Indian Pact, with the Pact of India. Let us go ahead and look at what this peace treaty is going to go ahead and look like in about 3, 2, and 1. And alrighty, here we are back after the peace treaty of South Asia, with the borders now looking at like this. The pink team losing significant amounts of land and access to their northern ally, South China being severely weakened and diminished by the Taiwanese, this country losing very little bits of land. This country basically gets turned into a long thing and is very, very weak and unstable. So is the red team. The orange team signed a peace with the North Caspian Kingdom to gain both of their exclaves down here for this exclave right up here and for reparation payments. The pink team took a lot of the red team land. The green team took all of the land of the red team over here and all of this over here. So that is basically the war of Asia, or the war for Asia. And now let us get over to a civil war. But unfortunately, the civil war will not be in this video. We're coming down here because we're not going to be focusing on the civil war, but instead we're going to be focusing on a country that wants to get involved in the civil war, and that country is the pink team. They want the Indonesians off their continent. As the Indonesians were not the first ones to do slavery, but after realizing, hey, slavery is a good thing, free labor force, they begin to take all of the native population within, well, specifically the older brother, that is. They begin to take all of the native population within his territory, and he begins to basically enslave them. And that pisses off all of the Australian countries. But only the pink team has the balls to invade them. And the invasion goes well for a little bit. For a little bit. But eventually, the invasion does stall out, as essentially the brother sacrifices multiple bits and territories and gains that he has, primarily the ones on silver, which that is just how I will refer to as the primary government. I would just refer to the primary government as silver, as he relinquishes all of his captured islands that he took from them back over to them through, countless naval invasions, and instead signs peace with all of the countries, officially creating Papua New Guinea as an independent country. The only one that doesn't accept peace is, of course, Silver, the primary government, who want all of their colonial holdings back because that made them fairly strong and have a bunch of resources for them to trade. With this redirecting and refocusing of troops and units, the pink team is eventually pushed back, and fearing outright occupation and enslavement, they do sue for peace, but the elder brother does not want it just yet. He wants land and reparations for this war, and so that's exactly what he gets. He pushes into the pink team and begins to capture territory by territory, city by city, and every native person he comes across, his troops capture them, women, children, men, elderly, young folk, capture them and throws them into basically encampments where they will be processed and then thrown into a farm somewhere or a factory to basically be turned into slaves. The pink team's Papua New Guinea holdings quickly begin to fall over to him, but eventually he sues for peace, and he doesn't even take land. He merely just takes all of the people that are in his occupied territory and sends them into slavery for himself, or he sells them to neighboring countries that want slavery. Like, for example, China, who does not have any colonial holdings, but suffers from a internal problem of its economy, which basically means it has a lot of people, but not enough money to pay all of those people. Also, not to mention all of the immigrants and migrants that came from South Asia, Central Asia, and Southeast Asia, fleeing the war that was, happening and taking place. So that did not help them. However, the rest of the Civil War it still remains at a stalemate, as it is a bunch of islands fighting each other, so it's kind of hard to do so. But that, ladies and gentlemen, will be all for today's video. I'm Sean's Mapping, or the Sultanate Empire. If you enjoyed today's video, go beneath the video and hit the like button. If you didn't, you can hit the dislike button. I don't mind. If you want to be notified the next time I upload, I suggest you hit the subscribe button and that bell notification so you can get notified the next time I upload a video to my channel. I'm Sean's Mapping, or the Sultanate Empire, and I'll see you, ladies and gentlemen, in the next video. Oh, before I go, I almost forgot. I can't believe I almost forgot. I hope you beautiful ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be, wherever you may live, enjoy the rest of your day or night. Enjoy the rest of your day or night. Have a good time, live a good life, and Merry Christmas to you all. See ya.